All right, let's dive right into this explainer and completely demystify the biomechanics of the classic push-up. Our goal today? To help you break straight through those frustrating strength plateaus. Whether you're doing your very first repetition against a wall or you're repping out super heavy-weighted sets, the push-up is honestly a remarkably sophisticated movement. Today, we're going to look closely at the science, the physics, and the clinical data that make this bodyweight staple an absolute powerhouse for muscle growth.
But real quick, before we jump into the science, just a quick heads up that this is an educational explainer. The biomechanical principles we're discussing come straight from clinical literature, so always make sure to consult a certified professional trainer for your own specific needs, concerns, and guidance.
Okay, here's what's on the agenda today. 1. Push-up anatomy and biomechanics. 2. The science of muscle growth. 3. Mastering push-up variations. 4. Guidelines for every level. And 5. Actionable tips and conclusion.
Let's start right off with Section 1, Push-up Anatomy and Biomechanics.
I want you to think of your body exactly like a loaded barbell. Seriously. Biomechanically speaking, when you're locked into that plank position, you're acting as what's called a second-class lever. Your feet? They're your pivot point, or the fulcrum. Your body's center of mass acts as the resistance, and the effort is applied straight down through your hands. So the torque required to literally press yourself up from the floor is a mathematical function of your body mass, gravity, and the distance from your feet to your center of mass. Bottom line, you are lifting real, measurable weight every single time you push off that floor.
So what does this all mean for your workout? Well, clinical kinetics studies, like the ones done by researchers like Eben and his colleagues, reveal exactly how manipulating that lever drastically changes the percentage of body weight you push. Elevating your hands by about 60 centimeters drops the load to roughly 41% of your body weight, which is absolutely perfect for rehabilitation or if you're just starting out. Dropping to your knees puts you right around that 50% mark, but a standard floor-level push-up, that forces you to press roughly 64 to 69% of your total body weight. To put that into perspective, if you weigh 180 pounds, you are actively pressing over 115 pounds. And hey, if you want to make it even harder, elevating your feet to a decline shifts that load all the way up to 74%.
Now, because your hands are planted firmly on the ground, this is what we call a closed chain exercise, which demands massive full-body integration. It doesn't just hit your chest and triceps. It heavily recruits the anterior deltoids in your shoulders. It also fires up the serratus anterior, often known as the boxer's muscle, which is totally crucial for stabilizing your shoulder blades. And your core? Oh yeah, your rectus abdominis and transversus abdominis are firing isometrically the entire time just to keep your spine perfectly neutral.
Moving right along to Section 2, the science of muscle growth.
So how do we actually force these muscles to grow using just our body weight? Well, for muscle growth or hypertrophy to happen, you have to provide a stimulus that's greater than what your muscles are currently used to. This biological law is known as progressive overload. In the weight room, it's pretty simple, right? You just add more plates to the bar. But in calisthenics, you achieve progressive overload by tweaking your leverage, increasing your reps, slowing down your tempo for more time under tension, or shifting to a tougher variation. If you do the exact same workout forever, your muscles adapt and they just stop growing. You literally have to force them to grow by progressively bumping up that mechanical tension.
Let's see how that looks in practice with Section 3, Mastering Push-Up Variations. Let's look at a real game changer, the pike push-up. This brilliant variation shifts your loading vector from horizontal to vertical. You start off in an inverted V, kind of like a downward dog position. Now the absolute key to proper form here is to lower your head forward and down, so your nose touches the floor just ahead of your fingertips, creating a sort of right-angled triangle. This keeps your forearms totally vertical to the floor and stops those elbows from flaring out. It aggressively targets the front and side of your shoulders, as well as your upper chest, making it the ultimate stepping stone if you want to eventually conquer handstand push-ups.
Now, if you're an advanced athlete looking for a real challenge, enter the L-sit push-up. This is an absolute masterclass in full body control and isometric tension. Typically done on parallettes, you execute a deep push-up, press dynamically to a full arm extension, and then use powerful abdominal compression to literally shoot your legs forward into a suspended L hold. This isn't just a chest and arms game anymore. Your lats and lower traps have to forcefully push the shoulder girdle down, while your core, hip flexors, and quads are screaming in extreme contraction just to hold your legs parallel to the floor.
And you know, this perfectly illustrates mechanical overload in action.
Once you've mastered the standard push-up, you definitely don't have to just grind out endless repetitions forever. By draping heavy chains, tossing on a weighted vest, or stretching an elastic resistance band right over your upper back, you can safely skyrocket the intensity. This lets you stay in that sweet spot of 8 to 15 reps to build serious upper body mass, completely matching the muscle-building potential of a heavy barbell press.
All right, on to Section 4, Guidelines for Every Level. People love to compare the push-up to the bench press, but honestly, they are totally different beasts neurologically and biomechanically. The bench press is an open-chain movement where your shoulder blades are literally pinned to the bench to create a stable base. The push-up, on the other hand, is a closed-chain movement. This is exactly why we highlighted it earlier. Because your hands are fixed, it allows your shoulder blades to move freely and naturally. They retract as you go down, and they actively protract as you push back up. That free movement is absolutely fantastic for developing your serratus anterior and keeping your shoulders healthy and pain-free in the long run.
But to actually get those benefits, your form has to be dialed in. It's completely non-negotiable. First up, never flare your elbows way outward at a 90-degree angle. Keep them somewhat tucked to protect your shoulder joint from impingement. Second, if you're a beginner, it's highly recommended to regress to incline push-ups, so hands on a bench or a wall, rather than letting your form completely fall apart on the floor. Third, brace that core tight so your hips don't sag and put nasty stress on your lower back. And finally, if you are throwing on external weights like plates or chains, make sure they sit strictly on your upper back to maximize the resistance without crushing your lumbar spine.
And hey, do not sleep on the cardiovascular benefits here. Pushing your body weight for higher reps absolutely crosses over into aerobic conditioning. In fact, a fascinating study published in the JAMA Network Open found that a higher baseline push-up capacity in active adult men is strongly linked to a significantly lower incidence of cardiovascular disease events later in life. Building serious muscle while protecting your heart at the exact same time, that is the magic of calisthenics.
Let's wrap things up with Section 5, Actionable Tips and Conclusion.
So remember, your body is exactly like a barbell. How you angle it entirely determines the weight you're lifting. Start with the variation you can do with flawless form, focus heavily on that shoulder blade health, and consistently apply progressive overload by either shifting your leverage or safely adding some weight. Now, I would absolutely love to hear from you. Which push-up variation are you most excited to try out next to shatter your strength plateau? And what fitness science topics should we tackle in our future explainers? Please make sure to subscribe to the channel, drop your thoughts in the comments below, and keep overloading those muscles.